Aloha. My name is Mr.
Cagney.
I have but one question for you. Can you attend my class? It is for your own good, and if you can't make it, I can make you.
What makes a Hollywood star? Sometimes it's rugged handsomeness or classic beauty. Occasionally it can be intense likability. And other times it can be an actor or actress who does something so perfectly, whether it's silent comedy, musical comedy, the Western cowboy hero, or the femme fatale, that the other contenders in that genre need not even compete for the honors of the best of all time in that particular field. For this video of When the Pictures Got Bigger, I want to offer a profile of one actor who is certainly recognized as one of Hollywood's greatest and most beloved stars. AFI's landmark 100 Years, 100 Stars special in 1999 ranked him as the 8th greatest star of all time. But he may have just also been the most diverse Hollywood actor in film history, as he was just as comfortable in his tough guy gangster characters as he was in his comedic musical performances. This allowed the diminutive actor to show off his dancing and singing skills, or even the dashing leading man who won the girl in the end. I'm talking about James Cagney, a true Hollywood legend who may sometimes be overlooked for his screen greatness, but an actor who created some of the most memorable screen moments in film history. I haven't seen all of Cagney's films. He made 64 in his career, with most focused in the busy period between 1930 and the late 1950s. But I did watch close to a third of them shortly before making this video, as well as reviewed a pair of made-for-TV documentaries on the Hollywood Walk of Fame star. I also read the biography Cagney by John McCabe to learn as much about the man and actor as possible. With that being my classroom preparation, let's take a masterclass together with James Cagney as a professor, showing us how to act both in front of the camera and off the set. And students, there will be no classroom doodles permitted on our video blackboard.
Now, before resuming the subject of microstenosis, will Mr. Leonardo da Vinci O'Connor please remove his latest work of art from the blackboard?
Although there are 3 essential Cagney roles that every film fan needs to watch at least once in their lives, we'll get to those in greater detail later. To truly understand Cagney's natural skills, it's vital to start where else? At the beginning. James Cagney was born in the Lower East Side of New York City on July 17, 1899, as the second eldest of 7 children, with 2 of his siblings dying in infancy. He grew up fending for himself in a few different rougher parts of New York, using boxing skills taught to him by his loving mother Carrie, to help overcome natural bullying rituals in an area riddled with poverty and crime. Jim grew up in a New York City that was slowly entering the 20th century, at the end of an era where you still had the opportunity to experience country living close to the big city. Cagney relates in his autobiography a story of an extended vacation at age 7 at his aunt's farm in Flatbush, Brooklyn. This allowed him to leave the hustle and bustle of the Lower East Side of Manhattan for the countryside, instilling a love for farming and horses within him that he never lost. It's remarkable to see how many Hollywood legends were born the same year as Cagney, in 1899, including Alfred Hitchcock, Fred Astaire, the writer Ernest Hemingway, who was 4 days younger than Cagney, as well as Gloria Swanson and 2 actors who would go on to star with Cagney in several films, Humphrey Bogart and Pat O'Brien. Cagney was known for working repeatedly with the same actors. He and Pat O'Brien starred in 9 films together, including their dual final film performances in the 1981 Milos Forman film Ragtime, and were real-life friends for almost 60 years, while he also paired up with Humphrey Bogart in 3 memorable roles together, Angels with Dirty Faces, The Roaring Twenties, and The Oklahoma Kid. And Cagney had countless other friends, including Frank McHugh, who he shared the screen with a remarkable 11 times, and worked alongside the actor on multiple occasions.
Teach. All right, look, here's the deal.
He also collaborated with family members, working with his younger sister Jean Cagney in 3 films, including the adaptation of the Pulitzer Prize-winning play The Time of Your Life by William Saroyan in 1949. Always wanted to share his Hollywood success with his wife Winnie and other Cagney family members, Jean also played the younger sister of Cagney's George M. Cohan role in Yankee Doodle Dandy. And even his non-acting brothers and mother were brought to Los Angeles by Cagney after becoming a star so that they could share family time together. James also hired his other acting sibling, younger brother and look-alike William Cagney, as his manager, with the latter going on to produce more than 10 of his brother's movies. James Cagney had a natural affinity for language and movement and was encouraged to use these skills by his dominant mother Carrie and his alcoholic father James Francis Cagney, who passed away from the Spanish flu in 1918, forcing his son Jim to drop out of Columbia College and begin his performing career. Like many future Hollywood stars of the era, James Cagney got his acting start on stage, where he and his future wife Willie met after both were cast as chorus dancers in the 1920 Broadway show Pitter Patter. Francis Willard Willie Vernon was also a talented dancer, and the couple started as dance partners in that show before becoming life partners after their initial theater pairing. The couple was married on September 28, 1922, and remained together in a 63-year marriage that certainly ranks among one of the longest Hollywood marriages on record. Although James and Willie were both very talented dancers and continued to perform together in both New York City and in vaudeville roles on the road, it was clear to the newly married couple, as well as to critics, that there was something special about James Cagney's ability to dominate his stage and later film performances. After a series of favorable reviews by New York theater critics led to growing popularity for the actor/dancer, the 1930s staging of the play Penny Arcade with Cagney and Joan Blondell was commissioned by Hollywood, where it was renamed Sinner's Holiday and introduced film audiences to the now 30-year-old future star.
That was bloody brilliant.
Oh, thank you for that assessment, Mr. Weasley. Perhaps it would be more useful if I were to transfigure Mr. Potter and yourself into a pocket watch. That way one of you might be on time.
Cagney made 7 movies in his first 2 years in Hollywood, but the film that really vaulted him into fame was 1931's The Public Enemy, a crisp gangster action drama directed by William Wellman, the man who directed 1929's Wings, the first film to ever earn an Oscar for Best Film. Wellman had earlier directed Cagney that year in Other Men's Women, and would later earn his only Oscar for writing the screenplay for the original version of A Star is Born. Warner Brothers was hoping to capitalize on the success of other gangster films of the era, such as Little Caesar, and Wellman wisely switched roles for The Public Enemy at the last moment to put Cagney in the lead role of Tom Powers, a ruthless gangster who we see grow up from a petty thief as a youngster to a vital member of a crime syndicate, to the chagrin of his older brother. Now, the movie is perhaps best remembered for the brief grapefruit scene where a hungover Powers smashes half a grapefruit into the face of a female girlfriend, played by Mae Clark. Cagney apparently improvised some of the dialogue in that scene.
I wish you was a wishing well, so that I could tie a bucket to you and sink you.
But the speech that I find most interesting in the movie is when Powers is trying to strong-arm a bartender into purchasing the beer brewed by a syndicate and threatens to kick his teeth out one at a time. This mirrored the real-life incident that changed the life of Cagney's father, and was probably the reason that his father was an alcoholic. His dad lost 21 teeth after being slugged in the face by a drunk customer named Oppenheimer. Cagney addresses the incident in his autobiography, Cagney by Cagney. I realized just how much the pain the loss of those teeth brought Pop. He drank sip by sip all day to kill that pain. But this doesn't connect it to the dialogue from his breakout film. Whether this was an improvised addition to the Oscar-nominated script written by John Bright and Kubek Glossman is unclear. Regardless, audiences were quickly taking notice of how Cagney could deliver moments of tough guy rapid-fire dialogue and instill those into softer moments that showed real nuance to the on-screen talents of his characters. Audiences began to understand the motivations to their anger and frustration.
Why do I stand up here? Anybody?
To feel taller.
No. Thank you for playing, Mr. Dalton. I stand upon my desk to remind myself that we must constantly look at things in a different way.
With the success of Cagney as gangster or rough city guys in films like The Public Enemy, Taxi, Smart Money, Lady Killer, Jimmy the Gent, and Blonde Crazy, Warner Brothers was perfectly content to keep churning out the money-making genre films. However, Cagney was eager to show off his song and dance background and his other skills, so a different side of the actor began to slowly emerge. Cagney took a break from his many gangster or tough guy roles to play Bottom in the 1935 staging of Shakespeare's A Midsummer's Night Dream by Warner Brothers. Then, he showed Hollywood he could truly handle singing and dancing roles a couple years later, in 1937, the movie Something to Sing About. This was made during one of the stretches that Cagney was fighting Warner Brothers for more money, and so he stepped away from the studio contract to make that film. Although Cagney is rightfully recognized for his multiple talents on screen, he's probably best remembered for those gangster roles, with about a quarter of his movie roles as gangsters or criminal bosses.
Why, what a long face. Well, I know just the thing for that. Here.
In 1938, Cagney returned to the hoodlum roles he handled with ease by starring in a pair of classic performances. First, earning his first Best Actor nomination for his role as Rocky Sullivan in 1938's Angels with Dirty Faces, directed by Michael Curtiz, and then repeating a similar rise through the gangster ranks by re-teaming with Humphrey Bogart and Raoul Walsh's The Roaring Twenties, made in 1939. These two films, coupled with other solid Cagney performances in the 1940s, vaulted him to the upper echelon of Hollywood's box office stars.
This is basic math, but basic math is too easy for you burros. So I'm going to teach you algebra because I'm the champ.
Angels with Dirty Faces was originally slated to be made by the independent Hollywood production company Grand National Films, who had signed Cagney to star in some of their films after one of his earlier falling outs with Warner Brothers. He had made a couple of movies with Grand National, Great Guy in 1936 and the aforementioned Something to Sing About in 1937. And he was happy to appear in another gangster film for Grand National, but then the financial realities of Hollywood became involved. The story, written by Roland Brown, initially belonged to Grand National, but financial problems by that smaller studio forced the script's production to be returned to Warner Brothers, which allowed the better-funded studio to attach additional stars and an A-list director to it. Production began for Angels with Dirty Faces by Warner Brothers in June 1938. It finished 2 months later and was in movie theaters by that November. The premise of the movie revolves around a theme similar to many Cagney's other gangster roles. Can people overcome their roots and family circumstances and escape their fate? The film's first act begins with a childhood crime committed by two Irish-American teenagers, Cagney's Rocky Sullivan and his friend Jerry Connolly, played by Cagney's real-life friend Pat O'Brien. That boyhood act leads both men down different paths in life. After serving jail time, Cagney's character goes on to life in crime, with O'Brien's character turning straight and becoming a Catholic priest in their childhood neighborhood. Years later, the two friends meet up again after Cagney has served more prison time and is now entwined with Bogart's Jim Frazier, a co-conspirator and casino owner. The criminal underworld of New York City in the 1930s is depicted in several more well-crafted moments in the film, with the dead-end kids, a group of young New York actors who are known for their hijinks on Hollywood sets, matching up with Cagney on screen. The most talked about moment in Angels with Dirty Faces is the final scene in which Rocky is visited on death row by Connolly and is implored by his friend to help save others in the future from his fate. It's kind of tough to try to not spoil a film ending that's been seen by audiences for 85 years now, but assuming that some video watchers here have never seen Angels with Dirty Faces, I'll avoid sharing more information about the last scene, but just mention again that it shows Cagney at the peak of his acting skills. Let's just say it's one of the finest Hollywood film endings that audiences can argue about its ambiguity. Also, since it's been really hard to not spoil Angels with Dirty Faces in this video, I want to share a pivotal scene from the less popular, but certainly Cagney-inspired, Angels with Filthy Souls. That was a favorite of film buff Kevin McAllister.
I'm going to give you to the count of 10 to get your ugly, yellow, no-good keister off my property before I pump your guts full of lead.
All right, Johnny, I'm sorry. I'm going.
1, 2, 10.
But to get respect, you have to give it.
As World War II broke out, Cagney was now a bona fide star, and like many of Hollywood's biggest names during the war years, he used the time period to act in several pro-America films, including another of the 4 films he would star under Curtiz, Captains of the Clouds in 1942. There was also The Fighting 69th in 1940, a short film starring Cagney, Ann Southern, and a very young Margaret O'Brien called You, John Jones, directed by Mervyn LeRoy, and a couple years after the war ended, there was the spy drama 13 Rue Madeline, directed by Henry Hathaway. It was also during the World War II era that Cagney earned his only Academy Award for his 1942 seminal role of George M. Cohan in the great film, once again directed by Michael Curtiz, Yankee Doodle Dandy. This Oscar-winning role is second of the 3 pivotal Cagney performances worth looking deeper at. As if there was a role Cagney was born to play, it was the American entertainer and composer, George M. Cohan. Although the film took a few liberties with the real-life biography of the father of American musical comedy, it did get privately shown to Cohan just before its 1942 release, and a few months before the 64-year-old would die of cancer. This allowed Cohan to remark about Cagney's performance. My God, what an act to follow. Cagney wasn't Cohan's first choice for the biographical movie. He hoped his semi-lookalike Fred Astaire would play it, but Warner Brothers realized that their now bankable star Cagney was the perfect actor for the part. And somewhat reluctantly over Cohan's anti-union stances, Cagney agreed to take on the role. The film was extremely popular. It would earn 3 total Oscars, including Cagney for Best Actor, get nominated for 8 total Academy Awards, and it went on to become Warner Brothers' highest ever grossing film at that point. This can probably be directly attributed to its production as a film celebrating American music and culture in a time of great national spirit, being released 6 months after the American entry into World War II. And it certainly was connected to that role, as it started filming the day after Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, with the patriotic frenzy gripping the United States in those rough few months following that infamous day showing up on screen throughout the film's 2-hour runtime. The standard biographical film allowed Cagney to show off his dancing and acting skills while also sharing one touching bedtime death scene with his character's father, played by Walter Houston, in takes that had most of the production's crew in tears. Ultimately, Cagney would be recognized for his lone Oscar for the performance, and his reputation as one of Hollywood's box office leaders continued to swell.
It's all right if you don't understand any of this, because you're brand new. But if you do know an answer, just raise your hand, okay?
The post-war window featured Cagney again stepping away from the Warner Brothers lot for the 20th Century Fox production of 13 Rue Madeline in 1947, followed by the Cagney family's money-losing production of The Time of Your Life. Although their independent production arm, which they called Cagney Productions, would make some successful films later in the 1950s, The Time of Your Life lost quite a bit of money, and with James Cagney needing a money-making hit, he returned to Warner Brothers for his 3rd pivotal role I'll focus on for this video, 1949's White Heat. This was another one of Cagney's classic gangster roles, but to me, the biggest criminal act of this classic Raoul Walsh offering is that Cagney's performance as Cody Jarrett did not result in his 3rd Academy Award nomination. Cagney's classic performance as the psychotic Jarrett in White Heat inspired many later actors and directors, like Clint Eastwood and Martin Scorsese, and it produced one of the most memorable climactic lines in film history. "Made it, Ma, top of the world," which has been used countless times in pop culture in the past 75 years. Although White Heat marked Cagney's triumphant return to the Warner Brothers studio, it surprisingly only received one Academy Award nomination, the first of back-to-back writing nominations for Virginia Kellogg. Although the screenplay, with its many memorable lines, was actually co-written by the team of Ivan Goff and Ben Roberts, who would later go on to create the TV series Charlie's Angels.
Morning, Bosley. Good morning, Angels.
Morning, Charlie.
There is no White Heat without Cagney, who agreed to make the film shortly before his 50th birthday, because his non-gangster roles were not receiving as many accolades after his Oscar victory with Yankee Doodle Dandy. "I'm sick of carrying a gun and beating up women," Cagney complained, but when the screenwriter said that he would be the perfect role for Jared, he reluctantly returned to the gangster role. It's what people want to see. If somehow you've never watched White Heat, or if it's been a few years, you owe it to yourself as a fan of classic Hollywood to visit or revisit this movie in Cagney's role. It's the actor at his best, using his abilities with an eyebrow raise, hand gesture, or other type of body movement to reflect the complexities of the ultimate gangster, Cody Jarrett.
Bueller. 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 Bueller.
Here.
Cagney continued to stay active in the 1950s, appearing in 15 films during the decade. Highlights include playing the captain in 1955's Mr. Roberts, playing Lon Chaney himself in Man of a Thousand Faces in 1957, once again playing George M. Cohan in the 1955 comedy musical The Seven Little Boys, and earning his third and final Oscar nomination playing gangster Marty the Gimp Snyder in 1955's Love Me or Leave Me, co-starring Doris Day. Although Love Me or Leave Me may not have left the same impact on movie history as White Heat, Cagney's performance is the best part of the Charles Vidor-directed film. In his nuanced role as the real-life manager of singer Ruth Edding, contributed to the movie earning a well-deserved 6 Oscar nominations. Although he was prolific by modern standards, the decade represented a mature Cagney, more carefully selecting his roles, and working with younger actors who benefited from his guidance. In the second of his 2 films for director John Ford, Mr. Roberts, he starred alongside Henry Fonda, William Powell, and in one of his earliest film acting roles, the younger Jack Lemmon. In a documentary made a few years after Cagney's death for TCM, called Top of the World, Jack Lemmon shared Cagney's instructions to him during that film on the key to acting.
Plant your feet. Look the other actor in the eye and say the words, but mean them.
Pulver. How is it I don't see you around much, Pulver? Often wondered the same thing myself, sir.
Politically, Cagney was never one to shy away from issues or expressing his opinions publicly. He was one of the key actors who helped form the Screen Actors Guild in 1933, and served as that organization's first vice president, and later its president from 1942 to 1944. Cagney supported the Democratic Party and FDR during the Great Depression and World War II, but shifted parties in the 1950s when Dwight Eisenhower became president, and would see a longtime friend and peer, Ronald Reagan, ascend to the White House later in his lifetime.
Knowing Jimmy Cagney is a better part of my life. Jimmy, I tipped my hat to you as an actor. I tip my heart to you as a friend.
Cagney would also actively support unions his entire acting career, a career which was very briefly threatened in the early 1940s with an accusation of him being a supporter of the Communist Party. These charges, however, were quickly cleared by U.S. Congressman Martin Dees, the chair of the House Un-American Activities Committee. In 1981, Cagney came out of a self-imposed 20-year retirement to make what would be his final film appearance in director Milos Forman's Ragtime, although he would star in a TV movie in 1984, before his passing 2 years later at the age of 86. His role of Newark Police Commissioner Rhinelander Waldo represents an ironic send-off for an acting legend. After a career of memorably playing gangsters or blue-collar characters trying desperately to overcome hardships, here, in Ragtime, Cagney plays an authoritative role on the other side of the law. But even in his brief role in this film, the audience barely sees Cagney before the action intensifies with his arrival in the film's final act. The complex decisions that many Cagney characters were forced to make are in full force. His police commissioner might not have the boundless energy of the younger movie star, yet he still controls the narrative in the last 30 minutes of the movie, in a role that showcased how his natural skills hadn't diminished. His odd director Foreman later remarked, "I think he's some kind of genius. His instinct is just unbelievable. I could just stay at home. One of the qualities of a brilliant actor is that things look better on the screen than the set. Jimmy has that quality." In declining health, Cagney still mentored younger actors on the set, and Ragtime remarkably was the theatrical film debut of several significant actors, including Samuel L. Jackson, Jeff Daniels, Debbie Allen, Mandy Patinkin, and Howard Rollins Jr., who received an Academy Award nomination for his role of Cole House Walker Jr. Although Cagney would make one more TV movie, Terrible Joe Moran in 1984 with Art Carney, Ragtime was his final film on the big screen, and his health continued to decline until he passed away from a heart attack suffered at his farm in Dutchess County, New York, on Easter Sunday, March 30th, 1986. Cagney's funeral was held at St. Francis de Sales Roman Catholic Church in New York City just a few days later, with his close friend, President Ronald Reagan, delivering the eulogy. Cagney had been an altar boy and received his first communion at that same church 8 decades earlier.
Class dismissed.
No, it's only for 5 people.
Class undismissed.
He sent him 5 golden tickets, and the people who find him will win the big prize.
Where's he hidden the tickets?
Inside 5 Wonka bars. You gotta buy Wonka bars to find them.
Class dismissed.
I wanted to put together this masterclass with James Cagney because the more you watch him on screen and the more you learn about the man himself, the more you realize that this was someone who everyone admired, respected, and appreciated. Cagney gave us countless hours of cinema entertainment, but beyond that, he was loyal to his friends and family, and he led a life of integrity for causes he felt strongly about. Cagney worked hard at becoming the best actor he could be, but he also used his fame to heighten awareness to other issues, such as conservation of the outdoors, the rights of the working class, and civil rights for marginalized groups. Finally, Cagney realized that there was more to his life as an actor than living the Hollywood glamorous lifestyle, and so he often retreated to his East Coast farm to indulge himself in hobbies he was passionate about, like painting, literature, horses, and poetry. Cagney was honored a few times later in his life with significant Lifetime Achievement Awards, including the AFI Lifetime Achievement Award in 1974, during a 5-hour ceremony that was later called the most star-studded gathering in Hollywood history. That ceremony featured one well-known Oscar-winning actor being heckled off stage and another Oscar-nominated director being arrested after the ceremony and spending the night in jail. Cagney was also saluted at the 1980 Kennedy Center Honors, in which his longtime friend, Pat O'Brien, reminded the gathered dignitaries about Cagney's simple approach to acting that never wavered and never faltered.
Jimmy, through the years, has had a creed about acting, philosophy, if you will. He's told it to many people along the way. When you get into a scene, plant your feet, look at the fellow opposite straight in the eye, and tell the truth. And he's adhered to that through the years.
Thank you, Professor. We have learned so much from your lessons. Are there some other Cagney performances or moments that weren't discussed in this video? Please feel free to offer your comments and thoughts below. And if you like this video, remember to subscribe to this channel so you can be among the first to see the new profiles we'll be producing in the future on the legendary actors and moments in Hollywood history. You do have some homework to finish though. Go enjoy a Cagney film. Until the next time, I'll see you at the movies.